Hey everybody, welcome back to Brainiac Baseball's 1980 Detroit Tigers season replay. This is the standings and leaders edition, and we'll try to quickly get through this. We have just finished the month of July, and we had the trade deadline pass, and nothing happened. There was nothing new of note. I've already made all the trades I needed to do. And so we're going to go ahead and just jump right to the standings here. And as you can see, the Yankees have a 3-game lead over us and a 3.5-game lead over Baltimore. If I really were to make an assessment, I would say both of these teams are probably better than us. And I don't know if we have enough juice down the stretch to make up the 3 games, but we still have 2 months to go. So it's too early to worry about that. I usually don't get too down about it until I get to like 10 games back, and then I know that I'm pretty much done. That's kind of my gauge at this point. So we have 3 teams that are still in it here: the Yankees and the Tigers and the Orioles. And then in the West, kind of a surprise, like California has a 3.5-game lead over Texas. Chicago's still in it, and Minnesota on a 6-game streak have got themselves within 9 games. So that's impressive. Minnesota is by far the team that has made the most trades. And so they've reshuffled their lineup so much, I guess they've worked their way right back into the pennant chase. So good job by them. So we'll go ahead and flip over real quick to the National League. And we don't talk about them too much, so it's always kind of fun for me to take a quick look here, as Philadelphia has a 3-game lead over Montreal, and the Cardinals are just 4.5 back. So 3 teams within 4.5 games, and it looks like Houston and LA are the only 2 teams still in it in the West. And just on what I'm looking at here, it looks like Houston is the class of the West, based on their statistics as well. So if it's interesting to just take a quick note of there are no teams that have 90 home runs in the National League. But if we flip back to the American League, you'll see that there's 5. And then what? There's 5 over 100 and 3 more over 90. So clearly we are the power league, and they are the pitching and stolen base league. So just interesting. So let's go ahead and get going with the leaders. I have actually not had a sneak peek at this, so we're going to take a quick look and check them out real quick. Here's the batting leaders, and Robin Yount, who got traded just about a month ago to Texas, is now leading the American League with a 346 batting average. Before it was Brian Doyle, I remember, because he bats 9th for the Yankees, and somehow has worked himself into the chase for the batting title. Dwight Evans, who got traded to the Royals early in the year. And then we have Danny Goodwin, Johnny Grubb, who's really just a backup, but he's right in there. And you can see the rest of it here for yourselves, with Doug DeCinces rounding out the top 10. And since we're already here, we'll take a look at the home runs. Strangely enough, Daryl Porter, the catcher for the Royals, has 20 home runs. That's remarkable that he's the one that's in the lead. Considering that we're at August 1st, and there's only one American League hitter who has 20 home runs. I don't know if that's indicative of the way the game was played in 1980, or if this is representative of just our specific league that we have going on. So Doug DeCinces is in second with 19, and we have 3 hitters tied with 17. Yaz, there's Dewey, and then Mr. October, Reggie Jackson, rounding out, which is interesting because if you've watched a majority of the games, especially our games against the Yankees, you'll know that he got off to such a slow start, and then he must have really turned it on just to even get to 17. So let's go ahead. We're just going to go look at batting stats first, and then we'll look that are important anyway, and then we'll go to pitching. So the American League doubles leader is Hal McRae, and some of the same hitters you'll see in there. Roy Howell for Toronto, pretty amazing. If you want to take a look at these longer, obviously you can just pause it and look at the stats. Extra base hits. Dewey's got 44. There's 5 hitters that are over 40. You probably won't see a lot of Tigers, mostly because we're more of a pitching team, I think, than a hitting team. But Alan Trammell is in the top 10 with 117 hits. And George Brett, who led the American League in batting average in 1980 with a 390 batting average, does have the most hits in the American League. So that stands true. So we're going to skip from the hits. Let's look at hit by pitch. Okay, so there's a bunch of guys with 4. Jason Thompson's wore it 4 times for the Tigers. And nobody else that Kevin Bell of the White Sox is right there. That's kind of funny. We already saw home runs and intentional walks. Is there that many? Yeah, Jim Rice. It's unfortunate that Boston has lost most of their good hitters, traded away with Dewey and then Carlton Fisk coming to my Tigers. So they must be walking around some of these batters. And a lot of other names there you would probably just recognize. On base percentage, Johnny Grubb. Now, Johnny Grubb did play for the Tigers, as you can see with his hat here. And I do remember him being a guy that walked a lot. But, yeah, I guess that's the case. He's got 55 walks. Kind of strange, but, that's cool to have somebody different in there. And then, of course, Mike Hargrove, the human rain delay. That guy took a lot of pitches, and he walked a lot. And I don't know if those are other... Dewey for sure. He was a leadoff hitter. So that makes a lot of sense. Outfield assists. Let's take a look at this real quick. There's Tom Paciorek, who had 3 outfield assists in 2 games against us. But Kemp is right there with 8. And then Bob Baylor, I believe he had most of those outfield assists with Toronto before he came over to the Tigers. And then there's Bumbo. Ralph Garr leading in the league, though. That's interesting. Plate appearances, we don't care about that too much. Let's look at RBIs. I guess we'll skip ahead to. And Danny Goodwin of Minnesota is leading with 78 RBIs. And if you think that's weird, not as weird as you might think. In 80 and 81, he did have over 100 RBIs. And then after that, he got a new contract, and he just fell off the map. But he was a 100 RBI guy back-to-back years. And other than Phil Garner being in there, all these other batters are right there in the heart of the lineups. So, not nothing out of the ordinary. Let's take a look at sack hits. Yeah, Tommy Brookins with 9. That's because he was so terrible. Whenever I put him in there, I would just have him lay down a bunt, and he was effective. And good old Dave Stegman, who's been injured for the last 4 months, is still there. And Jim Bibby, of course, was traded to Detroit, and he must have had 6 sacrifice hits in the National League. So that looks a little weird, but that's the way the game works, unfortunately. Sack flies, JT and Steve Kemp are right in there, and Glenn Borgman of the Orioles, leading with 9. And, moving ahead, slugging percentage. This will be interesting. So, yeah, Dewey's right there, Doug DeCinces, Robin Yount, Yaz, Daryl Porter. These are all the same. Fred Lynn I haven't seen in there yet. I haven't mentioned Rusty Staub, but we've seen him a few times on the board. Stolen bases. Oh, wow. Okay, so Julio Cruz has 57. He's up by 10 over Ricky Henderson. And Ricky's, he's getting consistent at bats. I was just wondering if maybe he was being platooned since he's a rookie, or in that season. But everybody else you would expect. These are all leadoff hitters. I don't know much about Joe Gates, but these are all speedsters. So, and Bob Baylor had 18 of those stolen bases on Toronto. So let's take a look here. Strikeouts, triples. Let's take a look at triples. Kim Allen of Seattle has 11, leaving everyone in the dust, including his teammate Julio Cruz. And Trammell and Baylor This is not unusual for Detroit to have leaders in the triples column in the 80s, especially with Tiger Stadium having that 440-foot center field. And then walks is Joe Morgan, Singleton, Ron Pruitt of the White Sox. And yeah, everybody else is pretty standard. Johnny Grubb right in there. And so, okay, so that's it for the American League in hitting. Let's take a look at pitchers real quick. Leading the ERA, Bruce Keeson. If you remember, he was in the All-Star game, and I tried to put him into the lineup, and it wouldn't let me. I feel bad about that because he deserved to pitch, but for whatever reason, the game had blocked him out of being used. So we have Louisiana Lightning second. There's Coos, Rick Lankford of the Oakland A's. He have 28 complete games this year in real life, thanks to Billy Martin. Jim Bibby looking good, and Jack Morris bringing his ERA down with that run of 8 out of 10 wins in a row. You got Bannister, you got a couple Dennises there, including El Presidente. And he leads off the wins column with 14, and his teammate Jim Palmer is right there. And Bibby Morris on this column as well. There's Frank Tanana, you son of a bitch. And Rick Wortham of the White Sox with 12 wins. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick at some of the pitching stats, and then we'll flip over to the National League. Complete games. Let's take a look. Start there. Holy cow, John Tudor with 8 complete games, and Floyd Bannister also with 8. And Danny Parks, the rookie, who never actually pitched in the majors, has got 5, which is, that's kind of fascinating to me how that works out for the game. We saw ERA. We don't need to look at this. Games pitched. We're going to see a lot of Tigers here. Yeah, there's 5 in the appearance column. And our workhorse, Dave Tobick, leading. John Hiller also was on the Tigers. I traded him right before the trade deadline. So he's only pitched in 8 games for the Blue Jays. He's got a couple of saves. I just was curious. And, yeah, everybody else is closers, I think, except for Rick Anderson for Seattle, who I think is just some schmo that is getting into as many games there as he possibly can with that terrible pitching staff. Who's hit the most batters? Jack Morris is right up there with 6, and Ross Baumgarten is leading the league with 8, and Doug Rowell of California is right there. It feels weird to say California now that it's Los Angeles, but home runs allowed. Who's giving up the long ball? Bill Paschal of the Royals with Cheese have given up 28. That's a ton. Considering that the leader only has 20. So Paschal's doing his part. Innings pitched. I'm kind of curious. Wow. Tanana, you son of a bitch, has got 184. If you don't know why I say that with Frank Tanana, you probably are not watching my baseball card breaks, and if you did, you would know exactly what that means. It's kind of an inside joke among subscribers and watchers. Innings per game, I don't really care about that. And I don't really care about these. And quality starts, let's take a look. That's a good indicator of who's having a good season. So, yeah, you'll see Bruce Keeson and Ron Guidry, who are 1 and 2 in ERA. They're right there. All of these ERA get. Moose Haas works his way in. So that's impressive. Getting the job done for the sad Brewers team. Since they traded away Robin Yount, they have just looked terrible. Let's look at runners thrown out defensively for catchers. Yeah, Parrish is on there with 25. He's just been terrible. But, yeah, you see the 2 best catchers, the 2 best arms in the American League, Witt and Sundberg. Charlie Moore is, of course, a good defensive catcher. And you'll see, a lot of these other catchers are just every day in the lineup guys. Let's see, what else? Saves. Let's take a look at saves. Oh, there we go. Senior Smoke leading with 26. which is good considering he had that stretch where he was just giving up runs every game. Tippy's right behind him. Goose. Mark Esser of the White Sox. I don't know who that is. John Verhoeven. Just some schmoes. Oh, wow. 16 for Esser for the White Sox and 10 for Dewey Robinson. So they got a bullpen by committee going there. And shutouts, curious. There's a few with 3. El Presidente, Moose, Coos, and Jesse Jefferson. Wow, he's coming out of nowhere. And, okay, so strikeouts. Pitched. Let's take a look at that. So Morris is right in there with 106, and Bibby's at the century mark. Leading the league is Floyd Bannister with 132, and I think he did have a bunch against us in his last start. Am I right? No, I'm wrong. He had 3. There you go. So, in fact, he's only had one 10 strikeout game in his last 20. So, now you know. And, sorry, where are we here? And let's take a look at, I guess this is sort of like their whip. It's walks per 9. I guess it's Dave Rosemont. Yeah, he definitely does not walk anybody. And Rick Russell. So it's good to see a couple different names in there. So that's good enough for the American League, in my opinion. Let's take a quick look at the NL. And we're not going to go through all the categories for the National League, considering we're not going to face them, until the World Series. So Keith Drumright, who was the lone representative for the Cubbies in the All-Star game, is leading the league with a .343 batting average. There's Pete Rose. And Dave Parker, always a good hitter. Some really odd names in there. Home runs, Claudel Washington, he was not a home run hitter. But you got Michael Jack Schmidt and Dan Dreesen. Of course, Dave Parker could hit the long ball. And Pedro Guerrero definitely had some pop. These other guys, not really known for having any power. But some interesting names nonetheless. Mike Cubbage came over in the trade with Minnesota. And Kenny Landreau came over from Minnesota to the Dodgers as well. So Minnesota just giving up all their power. A couple things. I definitely want to look at steals because, right, the National League is the stealing league. I guess on average they are higher than us, but because I think our lowest was 18 stolen bases in the top 10. So they have Gene Richards. He has 51. Around the floor, and there's the Wizard of Oz. LaRue Washington, who many people don't know, was U.L. Washington's brother. And just some wacky names. Gary Weiss, he made it into the All-Star game. This is Bill North, representing the Giants. Is there anything else interesting to just take? I guess, wouldn't be, if we didn't look at RBIs, it probably would be weird. So, Guerrero, Cromartie, Cesar Cedeno, Dave Parker, Dade, Cubbage, Claudel, Dave Winfield, and Ron the Floor, Ray Knight. So yeah, it's just some strange names there. And Gene Richards is leading in hits, with Ken Oberkfell working his way into the top 10. Gary Templeton's a different name. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the pitchers now, as I'm trying to find the right stat. There we go. Earned run average for the National League is Scott Sanderson. And he was in the All-Star game. Yeah, he's pitching pretty consistently. This Hector Eduardo, I mentioned him in the last time we did this at the end of June. He was a career minor leaguer and played the Mexican League, and so this game has added him to the Cardinals, and he's pretty dominant for someone who really never played in the majors. You got three Houston pitchers, which is why they're in first place by 7 games. You got Lefty Carlton and Tom Terrific. So you got a bunch of good names there. looking at the wins, oh my gosh, they have someone at 17 wins at the beginning of August. That's Steve Rogers of Montreal. And Steve Rogers did lead the league in wins in 1981 in the short season. So I guess that makes a little bit of sense. You see, of course, the Houston pitchers here again. And Gary Hannas of the Dodgers, who, I don't know, I think he was a career minor leaguer as well. I don't even know who that is. So let's take a look at a couple of interesting stats for pitchers. I definitely want to look at saves in the National League. And it's a tie between Dave Soup Campbell of Montreal and Tug McGraw. And then you got Bruce Sutter and Pete Roberge and Al Holland, Gene Garber, Terry Forster, Doug Bear, Rally Fingers, and Joe Sambito. So those are all, other than maybe Bert Roberge, those are all major closers from the 80s. Strikeouts, obviously, with Nolan Ryan. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, he's leading 169 at the end of August. J.R. Richards right behind him. They got a 1-2 punch there. That's lights out. Steve Carlton, of course, and Phil Negro just passed away. 127 strikeouts. I guess Larry Christensen wasn't really a strikeout pitcher, but he's right up in there. So, I don't know. I guess that's pretty much all I really wanted to take a look at. If there's ever a stat that anyone out there who watches this would like to see, just let me know, and I'll make sure I cover it. I do like to eventually, maybe at the end of next month, we'll take a look at the fielding averages by position, just to see how my Tigers rank within them. I know our defense has been terrible in the second half, and so that leads me to believe that we're probably not among the top defenders. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much it. As we head down the stretch here in the last 2 months, we flip it over to August, and we have one more game tomorrow, which I'll play with Dave Rosemar versus Larry McCall of the Indians. And then we just have 2 more series with the American League East, and then I believe everything the rest of the way is American League West. So kind of a scheduling snafu there, but we'll see a couple teams that we haven't seen yet, like the Royals and the White Sox. And so we'll get some freshness to the stretch run. And as long as we don't have any injuries, I think we're going to be pretty solid. So we will not be getting back Barry Bonnell. We'll not be getting back Dave Stegman. And really the only other thing we have to think about is some of our expiring contracts. As you can see, we have some really big names that are either going to be going to arbitration or are going to be looking to become a free agent. So I'm going to have to do some wheeling and dealing once the season's over to make sure we have enough payroll available. So at any rate, that's it from this edition. Thanks everyone for following along. I hope you find this fun and insightful. I always enjoy looking over the leaders, and I never really look until I show you guys. So I'm seeing this mostly for the first time as well. So until tomorrow, everyone, have a great night.